Hi to all. Everybody say hey to good old Poncho over here. I found him one day in the middle of a street or in the middle of a downstairs area, and I had no idea who he was. I tried to ask around if anybody knew him. Nobody knew him. But today, I have many things going through my mind, and I thought about something that I could possibly put out there as content worth and that I could prepare for. But then I get lazy, and the reality is that I have so much inside of my mind that I could possibly just blurt out and everything would just come to fruition because sometimes the things inside just continue to go at like a systemated and operated kind of level. So I don't need to write down. I have already what I think that I want to show you. And what I want to show you is a little bit about how to skip dimensions and also just a proven theorem about simulation and kind of my systemization thought process around simulations. So for one, let's. I had a, and I'll give you the long version. Years ago, I had this time in my sophomore year of college, and I had flipped a script. I went from like a full FD student my freshman year to my sophomore year, taking just about the most credit hours available on campus, which at the time I think was like 26 or something like that, 28, 26, 28. And I even had to get a written approval for it, considering my grades the year before. And I got approved for it, and I showed the campus right. I did right. I aced every course that was in my curriculum at the time. Well, throughout that whole study period that I had going on, I was really studying a lot, and I was correlating and meta theorizing a lot of the information that I had processed between every one of my classes, not just math to math or math to physics per se, but it was more like math to music, music to psychology, music to math and psychology. That is the act of meta theorizing, when you connect two dots from different places and you place them into one single theory, right? Um, it's critical thinking as well, but that's not to toot my horn. That's just to give you an example of what's about to go down. So, when it came to simulation theory, I was told about a concept in music that was called the Fibonacci sequence. And this sequence is seen in a lot of musical notes. And we see this in pine cones, and we also see this in architecture. Usually, the way I would start this theory off was like, would you believe that numbers is in everything that we do? People are like, what do you mean? I say psychology, music, architecture, engineering, um, aerospace, physics, whatever it may be, right? And then people say, yeah, well, numbers are involved. Yeah. And I say, yes, exactly. Numbers are in everything we do. And a simulation is merely nothing but a sequence of numbers programmed to provide specific functions for a programmed computerized system. And so I considering the information that we just went over, the pine cones, right, and that the sequence is in all it's in engineering and architecture as well, because it's a good foundational process. You can look this up. It's the golden ratio. Well, this golden ratio actually, and I'll give you a little bit of a visual presentation. So this golden ratio here, it starts a little bit like this. You have a beginning point, and then forever on and on, you get 0.618. You get 0.666. Don't ask me why. That's just the way that things are, and that's just the way that things will always be. Now, this is crazy. This is very far fetched, but in the beginning of times, we all know of the holy war between the good and the evil. And to our knowledge, evil wins because we live in a world of Satan. 0.666. But for all eternity afterwards, everything is consistent with those laws and forever will be the same, because nothing will ever change our world. Now you say, well, how does this number have anything to do with me? Well, we are nothing merely but a number ourselves. Everything that we are, our social security number, 3 digits, 2 digits, 4 digits, our phone number is, and you can ask anybody else, your phone number is a digital extension of who you are. And that's just not in a concrete form to tell you, but that's in an abstract form. I mean, think about it. If you lose your phone, you'd go crazy. You'd go crazy. If you lost your phone now, your phone carries everything who you are, your friends, who you are, photos of yourself, what you think you are, algorithms that know who you are, things about you that belong to you. You are who you are outside of yourself through this digital aspect of yourself. That's our cybernetic extension of ourselves. Your age, your height, all these are numbers and descriptions that describe who you would be as a being in a computerized process. And you say that maybe it's not. Well, maybe it's not, man. But to think that it is, you have to know what can be. You have to understand what is being said. Because after a while, your mind becomes blank because you don't follow anything. If you believe in nothing, you'll fall for everything. And that's the key to this thing. But back to simulation theory. If all that is merely nothing but purely numbers, and a computerized simulation is nothing but a set of numbers, that's what correlates this to that to be in there. And in some form or fashion down the road, it's been years now, and it'd be hard for me to kind of do, but I came up with a way to pull out that said golden ratio 0.618 out of every 0.66 out of everyone's name. No matter what way I shaped it, somehow, some form, I get a set of 3.6, 0.6666 repeating, 0.66 in some form or fashion. I guarantee you I'd find 0.666 to 0.618 in every single name there is. And that was my sort of justification as to why we belonged inside of the simulation, to think that we were programmed in such a way. And now keep in mind, I was a young mind. It was a good thought to have. And I brought it up to a couple professors and we talked over it. We went over it. It was a fun theory to think about. It was a fun spare time, although I spent like 48 hours being up trying to uh, come up with a way to explain this, as much of correlating different subjects together to try and prove a point, and also just finding the information that belonged in the right category to be able to present this to somebody else, right? One thing I did find out was that in a plane, in a dimensional plane, there is a 2/3 planes of dimensions, and that's how it sits. 2 dimensions over 3, and 2/3, you guessed it. Maybe I correct my math, but 2 divided by 3, 0.666 repeating. So that hasn't geeked you out, and it may not, but you may not even understand what the hell I'm saying. But point is, there is a basis, there is explanation power behind what I'm saying, behind this theory, just simply because the numbers add up in the way that I expect them to. And for everything, there's an equation for it. Sometimes it won't just be 2 divided by 3. Sometimes it would be the bottom number over the top number, or it would be the first 2 add divided by the last. And that's just simply how it is, because you can't find the answer to an equation in algebra by applying the same equation to every said equation. But what I've learned now that I've combined with that. So I was reading Gödel, Escher, and Bach, An Eternal Golden Braid, a metaphorical fugue on minds and machines in the spirit of Lewis Carroll. It's a very large book. But a couple months ago, when I was reading it, I came across this part, and I'll just keep it short, but it says, let's see. Or suppose person A is watching television when person B comes in the room and shows evident displeasure with the situation. Person A may think he understands the problem and try to remedy it by exiting the present system, that television program, and flipping the channel knob, looking for a better show. Person B, of course, There are cases where only a rare individual will have the vision to perceive a system which governs many people's lives, a system which had never before been ever recognized as a system. Then such people often devote their lives to convincing other people that the system really is there and that it ought to be exited from. Now, um, we all at some point have experienced the woke guys trying to, or I've heard somebody talking about exiting the simulation or escaping the matrix, and that's fun and games and all. But essentially, this book is about machinery and the comparison between the human mind and machines, and they make a couple examples about systemized processes and AI and how AI is different to us because they can do operating tasks, which means they run under no supervision. Um, Humans will not consistently do the same task for hours and days on because they need a break or they need to stop or it's just mentally draining for them. A computer coded and operated to do said function will do said function because it's the only thing that it knows, and it will do said function without asking questions, without getting tired or mentally drained. You don't have to worry about the same thing with the computer. So here's the levels of the simulation. You have at the bottom, if we are simulated, at the bottom, you have small mechanized processes where, all right, hang with me, because this is the battle between AI and human mind. Okay. Wow, it's been a while since I've done this one. Here you have the beginning line of machine operated AI. I think this can be your kiosk at the McDonald's, right? Where you put in a order and it does it for you. Okay. That is completely stationary, and it has a set order of what it knows and what it does. Then you have on the outside, I think, a phone, which has more tasks to it, and it can provide more functions and more say so. I mean, you have Siri that is interactive. She consistently changes with you. There is an expulsing power both in and out. Then you have third level technologically systemized computerized processes, which would be like robots and interactive hey, welcome guys, interactive computerized processes. So let's go robots. They're more involved and they replicate that of a human being much more than these computerized processes. But even here, we have an expulsing power both in and both out. This power breaks the boundaries of what said computerized process would land in this simulation. But within that computerized process, this is a micro level. On a macro level, if this is simulated, you have the Earth now here on the outside perimeter. The Earth itself is simulated as a technologically computerized and systemized environment, just like a simulation in a video game is, right? The video game is sitting on a disk, a circular disk. So there is also an expulsing power from there to the outside, to where, per se, the Lord God would be. And at a consistent level, all of these computerized systems are constantly both pushing the boundaries of who they are and what they are on the outside, but as well as pressure coming from the inside of the next level. And that's kind of how it works. To easily access the dimensional questions, dimensions lie in the micro level of everything. Dimensions, from my understanding, are less of what we deem them to be as a separate dimension, and moreover as a separate action the of the predicted choice of our own nature, of our own mind. I am in dimension 1 here, but I am also in dimension 2 here. If I draw the cone, I am both here, but I am also here. But over 3, there is an odd of this outcome at the bottom as well. So I can do this outcome, which is scheduled for me, or I may do this outcome. But both of those outcomes are tied to this one outlier outcome that is also plausible for me to do. And if I do set outcome, I have reached another plane of dimensional opportunities. Now, in this outcome, there is this outcome. And same by this outcome, divided by 3, there is both this outcome and this outcome, another 2 outcomes. But a dimensional plane exists on a scale of 2 over 3. You always have 2 over one other outcome. So after the main outcome, I pick my nose, and then I've never used a tissue. Instead of walking out the door, I walked out of my window. That leads me to the third outcome. Now that I walk out of my window, do I go to my car or do I walk to the store that is 0.5 miles down the road? This is the car. This is walking. I choose to walk, which leads me to the other dimensional opportunity. I've changed the dimension by the course of action that I've done. And that's a little, you see it? You start here with choices. You go with one choice that is erratic to your usual behavior. This leads you to another outcome. Here you have another group of choices. You choose the outlier choice, leads you to the other opportunity of choices. You choose one choice, which is over 3. You have 2 choices, but it's over one other choice, 2 over 3, right? There you have an opportunity of other choices, an infinite amount of choices for you to make, but it all depends on which choice you make that leads you to get to another dimension. That is what dimensions and dimensional planes are, as they've been explained to me. The more erratic your choice of election, the more drastic change you make to the simulation or the dimension that you are in. The bigger shift that you experience based upon your dimensional election or dimensional change. One good example of this in realistic terms would be you either choose to pick up that alcoholic bottle for 8 months, or you choose to apply for your doctorate's program and you continue that for 8 months. One of those decisions will indeed drastically change the outcome of your said following outcome. And then from there, you'll have more other decisions to be able to apply / listen to / experience. But are you in a computerized, systemized process? I think so, based upon how much free will there really is in the ability to do everything. I imagine it as GTA, because inside you have one computerized process fighting for power on the X side. You have also power pushing it in. You have computerized processes here with more intelligence. And then you have a computerized process here with more intelligence, even within a micro level. And then this larger process right here, same as a video game. Same as a video game. There's constructors to a video game. So what is the difference then between our environment and that said environment? The only thing you can say is what they have said, but what they have said has been said before. That doesn't deem it right. Science is only science until it's proven wrong. And somebody always proves something wrong. But that's just my thought. I may be wrong.